Welcome to Handle the Daily, where men who are husbands, dads, and entrepreneurs come together to conquer the day. This is more than just a podcast, it's a movement. Here we pursue the Lord, lead our families, and build the kingdom. If you're seeking conversations that delve deep, reveal truth, bring honor, and challenge you to become the man of God you know you can be, then you're in the right place. Join us as we journey together, setting our sights on legacy, forging ahead to build a better tomorrow. Welcome to Handle the Daily, where we conquer the day together to build legacy for tomorrow.
Well, hey guys, welcome to this episode of Handle the Daily. And this is our Monday episode where we talk to other men out there in their roles as husband and dad. And today, I've got a really interesting guy on. We just met recently, and so I'm going to be learning more about him as we have this recording on our podcast. Man, Stuart, so glad to have you on here. Can you tell us just a little snapshot of who you are? And then after that, we're going to jump into a quick prayer.
Yeah. Chris, this is awesome, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come onto your show and just talk about my story and hopefully I can give a positive message for other husbands and dads and other men that are passionate about being just that, Christ-following husbands and fathers. And so I think that's probably where I start, right? To who I am. I'm a big fan of Jesus.
Come on.
I love him. I follow him. I try to be more like him. In the words of one of my favorite authors, podcasters, and pastors, John Mark Comer, I listen to pretty much everything he says. He says we're all trying to be apprentices of Jesus. So I think that's my first and foremost identity as the son of the ever living God. Two, I'm a husband to my beautiful bride, Krystal. We've been married 15 years now. We met in San Diego, California, when I was still in the Navy. That's another something else about me. I'm a 20-year retired Navy pilot by trade. I retired in 2022 from the Navy. And before that, I would say that I am also a father to two young children. I have a 9-year-old daughter. Her name is Collins, and I have a 6-year-old son. His name is Wells. I live in Parker, Colorado, and I am now just a full-time entrepreneur and desirable to be amazing husband and father to my family.
Man, I love it. Would you kick us off in prayer real quick?
I would love to. Dear Lord, please bless us and use this time to help us spread your message, to be good communicators of your word and to help others realize the path that they're on is a path that you are guiding them on. It might not always feel like it's the good path, but we know that it is a good path in the end. We love you and we worship you and thank you for everything that you provide for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, man, I love your setup that you did in talking about how you're an apprentice of Christ, and you said 17 years of being married to Krystal?
15. It'll
15.
be 16 in August. Yes, sir.
Come on, man. That's awesome. So if you could
Yeah.
sum your marriage up in one word, what would that be?
Wow. That's a great question. If I was going to sum it up in one word, man, love.
How so?
Love is it's the end all be all. It's what Jesus told us to do, right?
Right.
And that can be messy.
Mm-hmm.
That can be it can be service oriented. It can be faith driven. It can be sometimes angry. It can be sometimes lustful. It can be sometimes and there's so many iterations of love, but at the end it's just all about putting someone else before you, right? Putting someone else above your needs. And sacrificing quite often what you might desire to benefit, someone else. And so I think, I'm not the best at it at times. I fail just like any other husband. But I try to do my best at that and wash my bride's feet as much as I possibly can.
That's awesome. So when you and Krystal first started dating, what was one of the main things that really just drew you to her?
Um, her creativity. She's very creative in everything that she does, which is like opposite of me, right? They say opposites attract a lot. Um, she's a designer in the house. She's a designer by trade in her work, but she's also just a designer of how to live life to the fullest in the household, and then just being creative in uh, you know discipling our children, parenting our children, and just different fun ways. She's just all in as a mom, and she just loves every piece of that, and so I love her for that as well.
Does her creativity cause you to be stretched a little bit at times? And
100%, man. I did. So I'm a military guy, right? I'm
right,
I'm
right.
a
That's why I
I'm a
asked that question.
type A, checklist oriented, process driven, pilot, right? Like I got my startup checklist and my emergency procedures checklist, and then I
Right.
go by the book, right? And I'll make a check mark block to be checked off even after I do the thing that was required to do, right? And so like the other side of that, the creative side of my bride is yeah, it's challenging, man. There's that she's very although she's creative, she's also very detail oriented, which
Mm-hmm.
is an interesting um, dynamic, and sometimes it drives me bonkers. Uh, but again, I love her for it because it makes me a better person because I'm just not that way. So
Yeah, it sounds like we have the same wife, man. My wife,
yeah,
Tammy, she's creative and she's detailed. I'll have her look at a video that I produced for a client or something. She's like, "Oh, that's misspelled. That's not aligned or whatever." And I'm like, "I'm just looking for like, do you like how it looks?"
yeah,
We'll get into the details after that. Like, I just need to know, am I hitting the mark? Like, we're still a work in progress here.
dude. What like so when we clean the house, for example, right?
Right.
I'm a surface level cleaner. Like I'm gonna
Hmm.
pick up the toys. I'm gonna put the dishes away from that were dirty in the sink. I'm gonna kind of move the stuff around to get back in place. First thing my wife does is like pulls the stove away from the countertops to like clean the dust behind the stove that's been there for probably a year. That's her idea of cleaning. Mine's just like picking stuff up and making it look nice again.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an interesting dynamic. Sometimes there's conflict and some headbutting, but yeah, in the end, it's all for the good. Makes me
So,
a better
so
man.
So from the challenge side, how has that helped you become better at paying attention and being attentive to her in the serve side of the husband role? But I also see that potentially causing an increase in just your relationship with God and with her simultaneously as well.
Yeah, it opens up a side of me that I know there's a fault, right? And so that opens up um opportunities to get better in those areas
Hmm.
and again kind of lay my life down for the service of others. Because if it was my way, like I would just do it the way that I would normally, go to, right? And so I think that's, I mean, in anything, right? In any, like
Right.
lifting weights, any educational thing, like you're gonna have to push yourself to go beyond your comfort level to get better, and that's the same in relationships with God, relationships with our spouse, relationships with our kids, relationships with our friends, our business partners. Anything we do that is going to make us a better human is going to require being uncomfortable. And so, if you look at it through that lens, at the moment, at the time, it still might be frustrating and it cause some anger. But if you look at it through that lens, in the end, it's going to make you better. So that's allowed me to, I guess, live with more grace,
Mm-hmm.
and forgive faster, easier, and apologize quicker. A lot of things that allow me to really try to be a better servant to my family.
Was there a time when you guys first started in your marriage that you were, well, let me just ask you this. What was the first part of your marriage like?
Well, the
Because
first part of my marriage, I was gone on deployment in the Navy.
you weren't
It
home
was
much.
wasn't home much. So interesting kind of story to how we met. We were both in San Diego. My wife actually had moved out there because she was dating another um, individual in the military. That didn't work out. She had moved in with a roommate who was a mutual friend of ours, and we met at a New Year's Eve party, and hit it off pretty quickly and started dating. And we got pretty close pretty quick, and I realized quickly that she was the one. At that time, I was just changing commands, and I entered into a new command, which was supposed to be quote unquote. So it was a shore tour, meaning that I was not supposed to deploy, but it was during the middle of the Iraqi invasion and the war, and the Army was hurting for people, and the Army was actually recruiting Navy people to come and serve with them and go on deployments. They called them individual augmentations. And so I guess it was about 6 months after we had been dating. Um, I was told that I was going on a long 14-month deployment
Oh man.
with the Army, and I prayed about it a lot. I wasn't as close to God at the time, but I thought about it a lot, and I was like, this is the one. And so I broke the news to her that I was going on a 14-month deployment, and it was a very quick decision. And I proposed to her with a candy ring. You know those big like ring pops,
Yes, that's
I,
awesome.
I I didn't have a ring, and so I was at a park in San Diego, and I proposed to her with a candy ring pop. Told her, that I want to spend my life with her. However, I'm going on a 14-month deployment.
Wow.
So yeah,
She said yes,
so
obviously, right?
she said yes, and she actually ended up moving into a house that I owned that we had, I guess, four other roommates. And she basically took care of our house and my yellow lab while I was gone. So it was we went and did the Justice of the Peace wedding prior to me leaving, and that was the first 14 months of our marriage, was me being
Dude,
gone.
dude. What was communication like in that first 14 months?
Not a whole lot. Um, we had the army unit that I was with had a satellite phone that we each got to use like once in a blue moon. I'd say maybe once a month. Um, we could do like I think it was Skype. Skype was the kind of the thing that
Mhm.
was popular then. We had internet, kind of not so good internet in our rooms, and so we could Skype, every now and then. But internet was kind of hit or miss on whether it worked or not. So the primary communication was just email. And so we would email back and forth and just kind of check in with each other and see how things are going. But yeah, not a ton of communication the first 14 months.
So when you got back home from that deployment, how long were you at home before you had to leave again?
Um, so that was the last long deployment that I did. I ended up um then I went on my short tour and was an instructor pilot for new helicopter guys coming in, learning the new platform of helicopters. And I was there for 3 years doing that. And so I didn't deploy after that for 3 years. So, and we lived together then. And then I changed career paths a little bit, again, still in the Navy, but I ended up going to what they call active reserves. And so I was technically a reservist being paid by the reservists, but I was full time. And so that gave me the opportunity to be home a whole lot more. We did not have kids at the time, but I knew that we wanted to have kids, and I knew that I did not want to be deployed with children any longer. And so it was either, going that route, knowing that it wasn't technically like the best career route, but I knew that it would allow me to be home a whole lot more as we started to have, children. So yeah, I was gone a lot. I was not as gone as much. I ended up changing aviation platforms to fly Boeing 737s for the Navy. So I was still gone a little bit, but not like months and months at a time. It'd be, a 3 or 4 day trip at a time, almost like an airline pilot where you're gone a couple days at a time. You'd come back. I think the longest, deployment that they do was like 3 weeks. So it wasn't as bad.
So with that being kind of the first few years of your marriage of this, gone for a while, then home, then gone, then home, then gone, kind of in small spurts. How did that strengthen your relationship?
It was, well, I mean, it was hard because it never really felt like you were home enough to like really get to know each other, if
Right.
you know what I mean. But at the same time, um, you hear this saying, distance makes the heart grow fonder. I think that's true. I think that it forced a desire to be home more, to get to know each other better, to be more intentional when you were home, when you
Hmm.
were together, instead of just, living lives on the hedonic treadmill, just, with no intentionality. And so I think that that forced a lot of intentional conversations, intentional, actions, more dates, more um, hand holding, more intentionality of holding the door open for each other and saying I love you more often when we were there, and just being really intentional about being present and being focused on building the relationship.
So you actually had to do a lot of communication in the times that you were away to build the relationship.
That's right. And I think that, as we've continued to work on that, one thing that I've noticed that we've done well is understand each other's um, the way we operate, right? The way that God created us, through questionnaires and books, and the five love languages, and
Hmm.
and taking courses together, and parenting classes, and like just figuring out stuff of how we operate, how she would answer a question, how I would answer a question, comparing those, and just really kind of talking through our differences, and honing in on those, and then being able to um, use those to each other's advantage when the time requires it.
What's the most important thing that you think that you can do for your wife, but is also something that other men should be doing and can be doing?
Be present. Be present, um, and listen. I I need to listen more. I think all men need to listen more and be present. Um, you know, and not like have this thing in front of their face, right?
Right.
When their spouse is trying to talk, this thing being the cell phone, the computer, um, the sports game that you're following, whatever that thing is, whatever that idol is in men's lives, they need to put that aside and be present, right? Eye to eye, face to face, ear to ear, listening, not talking as much, and be there to understand their needs, right? Um, I'm getting better at it. I'm not great at it, but I know it's needed, and I think men are not very good at it.
I would agree. And I was listening to your podcast recently and you guys were talking about could a man sit in a room by himself?
Mm.
And that's something that I've been thinking, man, could I sit in a room by myself with my wife or just the two of us where we don't have tech, we don't have music, we don't have anything else. We're just sitting there with each other and just being quiet. And that's something I'm planning on chatting with my wife about this week. And it's like, hey, babe, like we're all so busy. We have 5 kids and doing a lot. And I think just like as you guys, as I was listening to that episode, I was like, man, when was the last time I actually sat and was just quiet for a while? Like 30, 45 minutes and just really just soaked in that moment. And I can't remember the last time I did that. I've done it while driving, but I don't feel that that counts because
Yeah.
still doing something. Do you get alone by yourself, or do you and your wife get into a place where you just have that solitude moment, just the two of y'all?
I'd say I do it more by myself than I do with my spouse.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've been again kind of following some of John Mark Comer's stuff. He calls, um, uh, his book is, practicing the way of Jesus and
Hmm.
spiritual disciplines. And one of those is solitude, silence, prayer. I've been really trying to make that a daily routine, a daily habit. I get up at 4 a.m. and my normal routine is, get up, brew a pot of coffee, don't look at my phone, get that coffee, sit down and read the Bible. And typically we'll read the Bible for 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going through the Bible in the year. And I read through the sections, that's listed for the day. And then I'll journal. I'll journal different uh, things I've used throughout the last couple of years of doing, journaling. And then if it's not like freezing cold outside in the winter in Colorado, um, I'll try to get outside at sunrise,
It's
go
good.
for a walk. I like to do rucking, so a lot of times I'll put a backpack on with some heavy weight, and I'll go for 30 to 60 minute walk around our neighborhood. No phones, no podcasts, no music, and again just observe, listen, pray, thank God for everything in my life, and I try to do that at least once a week. And typically those kind of longer walks, rucks happen on the weekends, like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And it's been huge. It allows me to show up way different, in a
So,
positive way for my
so,
family.
so getting back to that place of just what you said, being present,
Yeah,
that solitude that you have for yourself leads to you having more presence when you're with your wife and kids.
absolutely, man. Absolutely,
I,
because it's a practice. It's a practice
mhm.
that you have to. Oh, it's a practice you have to practice. You have to like force yourself to do that because otherwise, like, I mean, dude, I got a monkey mind, like constantly racing with just anything and everything on my to-do list, right? I'm the checklist guy.
Right.
And so if you allow it, your mind will just race all the time. And so you have to force yourself to do this type of practice to get better. Because if not, like your mind is going to be racing as your wife is trying to tell you something, and she's trying to be, vulnerable with you or tell you something that she's feeling or thinking about. And if your mind is just racing elsewhere on your to-do list or looking at your phone or your emails you need to answer or your work items, and that's a detriment to your relationship with your spouse.
Before you were
So,
doing, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, bud.
no good.
Before those moments where you were having the solitude and whatnot, did you find that when you were having moments with Krystal, that where there was silence, you were trying to fill in the noise, filling it in with conversation or something?
Yeah, for sure, man. Um, and it was always just like it's always just like small talk too.
Right.
Like whatever the calendar is looking like, the schedule for the kids, what's for dinner that night, the grocery list. It was never like deep, meaningful conversation. It was just
Mm.
small talk.
And so
And I
you've
think
seen it.
that's how it is if you allow it to be with friends,
Yep.
with your kids, and with your spouse. If you don't be intentional about that.
Do you have like a family mission statement?
We don't. We've been working on one. We've been working
Yeah.
on a family mnemonic, G stands for this, R stands
Hmm.
for this, A stands for this, and we've been working on one. We have a prototype, if you will.
Nice.
What I want to have done is when we finalize that, have it printed out and have that put in the house somewhere. But yeah, we've been working on it. G right now is for Grazier's do hard things. R is radical generosity. A is always point up. Z, that's a tough one. We're currently on Zesty. I don't know
Zero
if
excuses.
Z. Ooh, I'm gonna write that one down. I like that one. I hadn't thought of that. I is integrity. E. I can't remember what the E is, and R is respectfully righteous. I
Love it,
think
man.
that's
Dude, you should chat with
yeah.
my daughter Madeline. She's 17 and she is like amazing with words.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'll make the introduction. She's pretty awesome. So, but man,
Yeah, we've been.
so diving into that and putting that together, how have you seen that shift your whole family dynamic?
It's funny. The other day, my 6-year-old son is playing baseball. I'm the assistant coach. This is kind of the first year of competitive baseball, which
Mm-hmm.
is it's pretty serious, man. It's pretty legit. We have like two 2-hour practices a week. We have double
Ooh,
headers on the weekends, games on Saturday and Sunday. It's a lot for a 6-year-old
no
and
kidding.
for a 44-year-old as the coach. Uh, but yeah, I'm exhausted like every weekend after our baseball games, like mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. It's draining.
It's like
Um,
corralling cats at 6-year-old boys.
it, yeah, it is. I don't know which one's worse. So I'm the assistant coach. My wife is the dugout mom, and like so she has to be the one that's like telling the kids who's up to bat next, like
Oh
making sure
man,
they don't lose their hats and gloves, and like making sure
family
they're sitting
affair.
in the right order. Yeah, that's hurting cats.
Sounds like
Um,
she's the creatively detailed individual that can do that just right.
oh, interesting, isn't that? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she made like she found on Pinterest something about like she bought all these like little tub buckets from the dollar store, and then she got her little engraving tool out and engraved everybody's names and their numbers on it, so like they can all be in order in the dugout, so they can put all their gloves and hats and helmets in it and everything like that. And
Dude,
she
that's
has
awesome.
a batting lineup order that she again found on some idea on Pinterest. So like that is her wheelhouse. She stayed up to like 2 a.m. Doing it one weekend to get ready for baseball games. So yeah, that's she loves that stuff,
You're a
and
blessed
that's
man having those
yeah,
qualities in your wife, someone who will just go like that extra detail.
100%, man. Because I would never do something like that.
Checklist.
Yeah, exactly. Where were we going? What was the original question?
So the question was with putting together that
Uh,
what did you call it, an enneagram or something? No.
I think I saw called it a mnemonic.
A mnemonic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
With putting together a mnemonic, how have you seen the intentionality in your family shift?
yeah. So, one thing that I've been really intentional about doing is ever since retiring from the military, I have always wanted to be the dad that takes my kids to school and picks up my kids
Good
from
for
school.
you.
And so one of the things that I do every single morning before I drop them off in school car line is say, hey, go do something hard today. Try something new today. Be kind, be a friend, and have fun. So I say that to my kids every single day. And now like it's just ingrained in them. And my hope is that they actually do that stuff, right? Like
It's
they're
good, man.
trying something hard, they're doing something new, they're being kind, they're serving their friends and their teachers. My point with the baseball that I was going with was um, I noticed a couple of games ago that my son got up to bat. He's the leadoff batter, and it's so fun. Like um, the parents, the moms, like ask for a walkout song, like what walkout song kids want. And so like my 6-year-old's literally like Major League Baseball walking out to the plate, and there's like a song playing, and they have like this like Major League announcer going, now up to bat, Wells Grazier, with like fun music in the background. And he gets up to the plate and he goes like this. And he points up
Come on.
as he's getting ready to go to bat. And he looked over at me, and
Mm,
I'm tearing up a little
come
bit
on,
just
man.
thinking about it.
Come on. It's
He
all
just looks
good,
over at
bro.
me. and he smiles,
Hmm.
and he knows and I know, and it was awesome. And so he does it like all the time now. It's pretty cool.
Man, you're having impact.
Yeah.
Good on you on being the dad that takes your kids to school and picks them up. That I
It was important to me. It was important to me. Um,
It makes a difference, dude. Like that's been the last 6 years of my kids. So we've had our challenges, and it was just us, just me and my kids for a season.
yeah.
So
No, it's been important to me also to be the dad that has the ability to, volunteer at their school and to be the one dad out of, seven moms that are doing like, the the carpooling for their field trip, right? Or the dad that goes in and reads them books or does the spelling tests as a volunteer. And again, be present, be
hmm
present for them, because the the pride on their faces and their hearts, like when they see dad come in,
it's
pretty cool.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. My fourth grader, his name's Braden. He's 10. He's like, Dad, you got to come speak at my school about what you do. And I missed career day, and it
Mm.
was last Friday. And I messaged his teacher, and she's like, why don't you come the second to last day of school and come talk to all of fourth grade? And so yesterday I had 40 minutes to talk to these kids. Now it's not a Christian school, but I was like, when I was 10, your age, yes, I know I'm bald and bearded and gray hair. Like I actually was 10 at one point in time for a whole year. I was
Yeah.
like, that's when I knew what I wanted to do. I said, how many of y'all know what you want to do? And man, I got hands across the room, and it was such a cool moment. And then at the end, my son, who I think based off of him being the fastest kid in the class, he's one of the cooler kids.
Yeah.
He was trying to be all cool and stuff, but he comes up to me and he gives me a hug. He's like, Dad, you're awesome.
That's so cool.
And then he had to walk me to the door, but he didn't want to walk me to the front, even though his teacher was letting him do that. He's like, Dad, I'll see you later. But yeah,
Cool
man,
kid.
it's definitely one of those. I don't get a chance to volunteer too often at their school, just with full custody issue and everything. But man, like that's awesome that you have the ability to be that intentional and that present in your kids' lives. At what point did you make that decision?
I knew I really wanted that to be the case a couple of years prior to getting out of the military.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Thankfully I didn't, like I said, have to do any long deployments um, with kids in the picture. And I just, it, it it goes back to my childhood. My mom and dad divorced when I was 5 years old.
Man.
My dad moved away. He they they just they argued, they fought all the time. There was custody battles and issues, and so my dad moved away to a different state, and so we would only see him like a week at Christmas, and then he would have a month during the summer. But beyond that, it was just my mom, single mom, until she found somebody else and remarried when I was 12, I think. And so we ended up moving, and we moved in with my then stepfather. Um, he was a little bit older. He had older kids, so he had kind of already done the kid thing.
Yeah.
And so like he was physically there, but I wouldn't say he was really like emotionally there, spiritually there. He would go to my games, and but I think he went more just because he enjoyed watching baseball or enjoyed, watching football. He'd kind of already been there emotionally with his own kids. And so, I didn't really have much of a father figure in my life. And so that has always been a priority for me, is
Hmm.
just to be there as a father figure for my two kids. So, I always knew I wanted to, that to be the case. I knew that if I stayed in the military, there's, much more of an opportunity for me to deploy again, be gone a lot. And I just didn't want that. So I knew like 20 years to the day, no more, no less, I could get my retirement and get my pension and not have to, be gone anymore. And so, there's been some struggles in that too, because I at first went to like the full blown spectrum of like stay at home dad, always be there, do everything, be present, anything and everything. And there was some struggles in that. But yeah, I knew for a long time I wanted to, kind of be there for my kids as much as I possibly can.
How long have you been retired now?
Um, Almost, I guess, 2 years now. So I retired in June of 22.
How's that transition been from being in the service to now in civilian life?
I won't lie, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to transition from a 20-year career in the military to civilian life, regardless of how well you think you're set up. And um, from a financial standpoint, um, we were set up pretty good. My college roommate and I from the Naval Academy, we were stationed together in Italy at about the 15-year mark when we were in the Navy. And my daughter was actually born over in Italy. And he was there quickly there afterwards to kind of hold my daughter and like just best friends, right? We've always stayed best friends. And around that time period, we were talking about like wanting to go into business together after we got in the Navy. He and I had both been separately doing some real estate investing. He had bought some rental properties. I had bought some rental properties. And at that time, we started talking about doing some real estate business. So we ended up starting a real estate company in 2018 while we were still in the military. We were flipping houses in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, kind of a random place, but his wife is from Wisconsin and they had bought some rental properties there. And so they had some contacts and a team that they had built. And so we started flipping houses in 2018. We were buying, fixer uppers, making them nice and pretty, putting rental tenants in, turning them over to property management. We'd keep some for ourselves, but more often we would sell them to other investors that were wanting um, an investment property. And we did lots of those. It grew really fast. We got to where we were doing 40 to 50 houses a year,
Wow.
which was in itself a full-time business, all while we were still in the Navy, both in leadership positions. And I say all that because financially, we were pretty set. We had rental properties, we had passive income, we had these businesses from that business that gave us other opportunities to kind of do some more stuff in real estate and buy some different, commercial assets. Um, but as we all know, money is not the end all be all, and money will not give you a purpose.
Nope.
It is not fulfilling in any way. It might be even worse as the more you get of it. And so we quickly realized that, as we are trying to build these real estate companies, um, about a year out from retirement, we were just in hustle grind mode, just 4 a.m. wake up, going right into business work, then going to our Navy jobs, doing our Navy jobs, coming home, um, saying hello to the kids, high-fiving the wife, getting a quick bite, and then quickly going to like, capital raising calls or emails or social media or whatever it was that we needed to do to kind of continue to grow the business. And it was all out of fear. It was all out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Of the unknown, of knowing that in about a year we weren't going to get a paycheck anymore, or if we did, it was a lot smaller of a paycheck um, from what we were getting. And there was a lot of identity and purpose questions. And um, we woke up one morning and it was really about the same time we were like, what, this is not fun, like,
Right.
and there's no fulfillment in this. And we say that we're doing this for our family. We say that, we're building passive income and wealth and, um, building these businesses. We say we're doing this for the family. We say our health is important to us. We say our faith is important to us. But when you looked at our actions, they weren't matching our words, because we weren't going to church on Sundays because that was my day of catch up. And I was, on emails and the computer, and I wasn't getting up to pray. I was getting up to do emails. I wasn't working out because I had my Navy job and my real estate job. I wasn't paying attention to my kids. They just saw dad with the phone in front of his face. And so did my wife. We had very quick dinner conversations because I had to get back to whatever I was doing. So all these things that I said were a priority in my life really weren't a priority because I was just hustle grind mode. Um, and so all that said, uh, again, I was doing that through fear of the unknown, of the identity. Because 20 years of a Navy military career, my identity was a Navy pilot, was a naval officer, and I had community, and I had a mission, and I had a purpose. And as soon as that day of retirement comes, that all goes away. Your mission goes away, your purpose goes away, your community goes away, your schedule goes away. If you go into entrepreneur world, like there is no more set calendar. There is no like show up time and end time. There is no deployment schedule, training schedule, flight schedule. There's none of that. And I found myself pacing up and down the halls of our house, and my wife was like, "What are you doing? Like you need to go do something. Like figure it out." And to the be alone stuff we were talking about earlier, when you have time on your hands, that's when stuff starts to come back up, right? The time of getting shot at in the helicopter, the time of seeing your buddies get hit by an IED attack, um, seeing your friend commit suicide.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, bud.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I've been hearing as you've been talking about like where you are right now in your daily is you've not a you've created a system by getting with the Lord and having him pour into you the things that are important, the things that are priority, and being able to not let everything else tell you the schedule, but let his presence lead into you having presence with your wife and your kids, and then everything else has to work around that.
That's right.
Dude, that's awesome. That is something I'm in the process of sorting through and praying through right now as well. And man, just seeing that joy, like we go back to a little bit of the beginning of our conversation, like there was such an excitement that you had on your face that as you were talking about your relationship with your wife and you were talking about your relationship with your kids, and then particularly in how it's the family doing the baseball stuff and everything, like you could see the joy on you. And that's something that I think most men don't even know how to even begin to put a framework in place on how to have that ability to be present with the Lord, present with their wife, and present with their kids, because all that other crap drowns out all that. And you can sit and you can say, I understand.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that I think men specifically find their identity in so many other things besides what they really should be finding their identity in.
Yeah.
Right? If
And
you meet a man for the first time, what is more often than not the first question that someone asks?
What do you do?
What do you do?
yeah,
Exactly.
it
And
drives me
not
nuts.
not
I don't ask that.
not what do you do is in the sense of like, how do you show up for your family? It's what do you do for work? What do you do for your career? And
And
especially in America, like
oh man,
that is the identity of
and
the man.
and I feel that's a manipulative question too, where it's okay, let me find out what this guy's got that I can get part of as well. I
Yeah.
I intentionally do not answer that question when I am asked that. If that's the first question, I'm like, all right, well, let me ask you a question before I answer this question. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah. How's your relationship with God?
Hmm.
What? Why are you asking me that? Well, you want to know what I do. It has nothing to do with anything else of the work side. What it is it's my relationship with God. And that rolls out into everything else.
That's right.
And man, that question, it causes issues with men. Well, I want to know what you do.
Yeah.
Well, you can go Google me and you'll figure it out real quick. But that's not getting a chance to know who I actually am.
Right.
And I think a lot of men are scared to find out who God says they are.
Mm.
They don't want to ask because their flesh is screaming, here's who you are, here's what you do. And it could be a totally different career path that the Lord wants to take them down.
Well, yeah, and what is successful, right?
Right.
What does successful mean? Because the world is going to tell you success is one thing, but I bet you God has a different idea of what success looks like for that for
Totally.
the individual, right?
Totally.
Success in the real world, in the world means, money, fame, fortune, notoriety, the number of likes you get on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not success. And success can be different for every single person, but it's what is what does success look like to you? We say in our masterminds group, like we're gonna redefine success. Like what does success look like to you in the viewpoint of your family, of your health, of your finances, of your faith? What does success look like in those areas? And really only you can answer that question,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not what the world says.
I agree completely. So one of the
A
things
lot of
I like
times,
to,
a lot of times that the men will find their identity in whatever the world is saying success is.
right, because that's easier.
It's easier.
It's tangible.
It's really hard to go like do like the inner work to dive deep into who you are as an individual, who God made you to be, to really figure out who you are and figure out like what what this is, what your heart is.
So one of the things I like to ask is what do you suggest a man that's listening to this episode, what could he do today to see a shift in his relationship with his wife and with his kids? Something simple that's like they could start it now. They don't have to have resources, they don't have to have a book, they don't have to have a framework or anything. Like what's one action that could lead to a complete posture change in their heart?
Get up 30 minutes to 60 minutes earlier than what you normally do. Don't look at your phone. And if you're a coffee drinker, yeah, get some coffee. And back to kind of the original stuff, like just either sit in silence. If you're a believer, read from God's word, go for a walk, and start your day in gratitude.
Come on.
Just just be thankful for what you got. Don't look at your phone, don't look at your emails, don't look at your social media, don't compare yourself to what, some celebrity has on Facebook. Just get up 30 minutes early, grab a cup of coffee, and just sit or get out in nature, go for a walk, like whatever works for you, depending on, the climate, where you live. But just start there.
I think that's great. It's simple, it's doable. Now at night, do you have your phone in your room?
I do. I have been telling myself to take it out of my room for a long time. I put on like, silent, everything's off. I turn it upside down so there's no light. The only reason I have it is for an alarm, but I really don't even use that anymore because I'm so naturally used to getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I still have the phone in my room. I know I shouldn't. It's just right now it's my alarm clock and that's it.
Yeah, that was one thing this morning in my quiet time. The Lord's like, no tech.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
go to
There's
bed in
a
silence.
Yeah. We don't have any TVs in our bedroom.
Yeah. Good for you.
Um, we don't, yeah, we make sure that, we don't have any, we're not looking at iPads or iPhones or, any tech stuff, any computers, to get good sleep. I went through kind of a health coaching journey, and sleep was a challenge for me. Again, kind of like, the mind racing all the time with my to-do list. Um, one of the a key aspect of getting good sleep is no tech, no phones, no screens, like, as early as possible, put that stuff away, but try to get at least minimum of putting it an hour away before bedtime. And so I typically will just lay in bed and read like a physical book,
Good.
turn the lights down low. And then that's kind of to the point of getting out early in the morning, going for a walk at sunrise, is getting that natural light right away, because that starts kind of your
Circadian.
your circadian rhythm. So yeah.
It's awesome, man. Well, I want to close out the episode. Mind if I pray for you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Lord, I just thank you for Stuart. I thank you for his vulnerability in our conversation today. And Lord, that whatever the thing is that he's been asking for an answer to, Lord, that you would provide that answer in a way that he would know without a doubt that that's you providing the answer and the solution. And so, Lord, I thank you for all that he is doing in his life as a husband, as a dad, and pouring into his friends and into his community and what he's doing with the Kinetic Man. Lord, I ask that you would provide opportunities for them to have greater reach, that they would have greater impact, and that they would see and hear about seeds that have not just been planted, but lives that have been changed through the actions that they're taking, through the things that they speak, and the life that they walk out with you, Lord. And so, Lord, I just thank you for this moment today and him being so gracious with his time and the vulnerability and sharing so deeply. And so, Lord, I just ask you bless Stuart and all that he's doing, and bless his family. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. It's good.
Dude, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on our podcast. It's been an honor to have you on here.
Fun. I love talking through this stuff, man.
Yeah, man. It's a blast. Well, guys, if you found stuff that Stuart and I were talking about impactful, I'd encourage you to do what he was talking about. Get up 30 to 60 minutes earlier and have that quiet time. Don't have tech with you. Get your coffee if you need coffee. Go on a walk, read a book, spend some time in nature, or get in the Word, and be in that place of gratitude and see how that shifts your day. I can tell you that once I started doing something very similar to that, like I saw a radical change in my life with my wife, with my kids, in business, and just not having to feel like I have to grind it out, but I was just walking it out, and there was a grace and an ease on it. And so, guys, lean into that and give that a try, but not just one day, but like try it for a few weeks. And then you're going to look back to when you started that, and journal it as well, and see the change that happens, because you're going to notice something different. You're going to notice that your well-being changes, maybe not overnight, but it's going to change, and you're going to feel something different. And that's the Lord putting his hand on the beginning of your day and not letting it off. And so we'll see you on our next episode. Go handle the daily.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Handle the Daily, where we conquer the day together so we can build legacy for tomorrow. If you found this episode impactful, share it with other men in your life. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, like, download, and share. To stay up to date in all we are doing, visit our website handlethedaily.com and make sure to tune into our next episode.